Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Leadership and Management. My name is Dr. Gabriel Telleria, and I'm delighted and honored to be your instructor for this course. So let's get started. This first week, we are going to be talking about some general concepts about leadership. But before we do that, let's first talk about the readings and the assignments that you have for this first week, and then we'll discuss a little bit about some of the leadership theories, etc. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, for this week, our readings are we have three textbooks. Okay, so for this week, we are going to be reading the Van Wart textbook, chapter 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and then you also have the Shafritz and Robert Gulick, which are in connection with chapter 3 of the Van Wart textbook. You should have the classics book from MPA 510, the Shafritz, where you can find the Gulick article. But if you don't, let me know. Okay, but the key readings for this week are the chapters 1, 2, and 3 from Van Wart. Okay, so these are your readings, and now you also have videos. Okay, so several videos, actually quite a few, and then I know that these are, if you combine them all, they're over an hour. So I apologize for that, but the good news is that they are very good. Okay, and they are extremely helpful, especially for those of us who have not had leadership courses in the past, for whom some of these concepts are completely new. So for you, if you are one of those folks, I strongly encourage you to watch these videos, okay, because they are very, very helpful, and they are going to help us get a clearer understanding of some of these leadership styles and theories, etc. Okay, because this course is not hard at all. It's actually an easy course, but it does have quite a bit of theory, surprisingly, right? Because leadership is very hands-on, but there are many theories that have been developed about leadership, and part of it is because of the of how broad leadership is and how difficult it has been for academics to define leadership, because it's so broad and you can really define it in many, many different ways, as we will see during this course. So please watch those videos. Okay, all right, so we have our multimedia discussion. All right, so for the multimedia discussion, this one is due on Saturday. Okay, the first thing that you are asked to do is to develop a brief recorded presentation providing a brief introduction of yourself. So tell us a little bit about yourself. All right, where do you work? Do you like to play golf? Okay, you can see here Tiger Woods. I'm a golfer. At least I try to be. I haven't played in a while, but I'm trying to get back. But I am a golfer, and I really like Tiger. I hope he gets back to norm. So do you golf? Do you hike? Do you read? Are you one of those folks who likes to read? Are you a swimmer? Okay, and many other things. Like, for example, do you enjoy wine tasting? I know California is a great state for wine, right? Napa Valley, etc. So I know that's big in California. So maybe that's your thing, right? Wine tasting. Okay, so what do you do? You know, what do you like to do for fun and leisure? And then describe a situation where you acted in a leadership role. Okay, and this can be formal or informal situation. All right, and then using the theories covered this first week, which combination of those theories would you apply to your example of your leadership role above? Okay, so it's not a hard not a hard assignment. It should be an enjoyable assignment. Have fun with it. Okay, just think about it being very relaxed. Think about the things that you like to do. Tell us about yourself. What is different about you? What makes you unique? And then describe that leadership situation where you feel or you perceived yourself as taking a leadership role, which we will see does not necessarily mean that you had to have been in a position of power or control or authority. So, just any position, any situation where you felt or you perceived yourself or others perceived you as having a leadership role. Okay? So, this is your multimedia discussion assignment. Now, a couple of pointers on creating your presentation. Let me give a couple of pointers to you here. The first one, the presentation should be short, 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, so not 1 minute, not 1.5 minutes, but 2 to 3. 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, 2.5 minutes, 2.25. 2:45, whatever. But keep it. Try and I'm not. I'm not a stickler for time. I'm not going to come down because you went under or over for 5 seconds. But if your presentation is 6 minutes long, then you will have a reduction in the grade, because part of this exercise is that you are able to follow the instructions, but also to provide the information in a short delivery. Okay, so please keep an eye on that. Now, slides should be graphic heavy with little or no text. Okay, I look for this. All right, I want to see pictures. I want to see comments or a quote or something like that. Okay, graphics, emojis, whatever you want to put in there. But I don't want to see a slide with a bunch of text in it, because that's really not interesting to read, or it's just boring, right? And I'm sure you guys are much more interesting than that boring slide, right? So please make it graphic heavy. Speak naturally. Have fun with it, okay? And above all, please do not read from your presentation, okay? I'm very flexible, but if you sound like you are reading from the presentation, you're going to have a lot of points off, because that's one thing that we need to start. If we haven't done already, we need to start learning how to present, how to speak to our peers and to our colleagues and to the public, right? And nobody likes to listen to somebody that's reading from a presentation, okay? All right, and by the way, this is also a master's level course, so we should be preparing for work and professional positions that are going to require that skill set. All right. Now, when you host your presentation, you can do so, for example, in YouTube. I use YouTube to host my presentations, or there's also Vimeo, okay? Embed the link to your finished product on the discussion board, by Saturday night, okay? So here, make sure that you're embedding the link, okay, of the presentation, and not uploading the entire file, all right? So just the link. So when you upload, for example, to YouTube, once that the presentation has uploaded and YouTube says it's up there 100% ready to go, you click on that link that says share link, okay? And so you share link, and then you just you embed the link to Blackboard, okay? All right. The step number 4 is once you have done steps 1, 2, and 3, respond by Sunday night, okay, to at least 2 of your other students, your colleagues, okay, 2 other students. Make sure that these responses, excuse me, go beyond just the "I really liked your presentation," or "Thank you for sharing. It was so cool to see that you like to hike." Okay, this is okay for for first year undergraduate. But graduate school, let's discuss a little bit more. Let's go a little bit more in depth, right? Let's think about something that was really intuitive or unique about this person, and say something that put more thought into it, if you will. Okay, so this is what I'm looking for as far as these two comments to your colleagues. And please don't forget to have these comments, because if you don't have the comments, you will have points deducted. Okay, so please remember that. All right, so now the multimedia crisis scenario. Okay, so this is the other assignment that you have. Okay, and for this other one, what you are asked to do is to develop a brief recorded presentation, just like the other one, describing a public crisis. Okay, so this can be any event. So think about a public crisis. Let's try and stay away from the pandemic, not because it's not important, because it's obviously is extremely important. It's paramount in importance, and it has been. But let's try and think about let's think a little bit outside the box, and let's try and go think about another type of crisis, another type of event, another type of scenario or happening or development. Okay, so think about that. Okay, now it could be somewhat related to the pandemic, if you wish to stay within that the pandemic topic. It could be something that, let's say, arose from it as a result of. Okay, but let's try and be creative here. So a crisis, a public crisis, an event, an emergency, a natural disaster, okay, a terrorist attack, okay, whatever you can think about, okay, that could occur at the local, state, or federal levels, okay, and so any crisis that could affect, let's say, San Bernardino or Los Angeles, right? And then how it would affect Orange County, for example, or how it would affect the state of California, how it would affect the nation. Okay, so at the very local, it could be local, could be a town, it could also be a county, and it could also be a state, and at the state level would be the state of California, and then at the federal level would be obviously the United States, right? So think about this scenario, all right? And then once you have identified that, on what organization or agency will your analysis focus, okay? What is the crisis that would occur and what that would require leadership? So tell us about the crisis that and why would it require leadership, okay? So again, an earthquake could be an example, fires, terrorist attacks, okay, large-scale power outages. We know we've had that. We have that in very, very common in the winter in the East Coast, on the East Coast, and sometimes they happen on the West Coast for other reasons, right? Now, provide preliminary information on the crisis. So how many people are estimated to be impacted? How long will the event and aftermath continue? What services, industries, commerce, etc. will be impacted? So this is kind of like you are describing what a crisis and what might happen. What are the consequences of this crisis? Okay, presentation should be 2 to 3 minutes. And now note that this is just preliminary. This is a preliminary idea to get you thinking about these leadership scenarios, okay? You can change your example, your crisis, if you want, okay? So you're not locked into it. But this is a kind of a practice, because the critical assignment, your final assignment, the critical assignment, will involve a crisis situation that you will have to write about and talk about. And so it's important that we begin to get our hands, our feet wet, so to speak, with thinking about the crisis, right? So on that note, let's look very quickly at the critical assignment. And this is just a preview, okay? Critical assignment is not due until week 8. So the final assignment is, again, intended to allow you the opportunity to explore breadth and depth of leadership theories through the lens of an evolving public crisis scenario. So we're going to be using any and all, or multiple, of leadership theories and lenses that we're going to learn in these next few weeks, and then we are going to apply or look at this evolving crisis through these different lenses and apply these different theories of leadership. Okay? You are going to be required to select the government agency and department, just like in this first week's video, all right, and identify a public crisis that will require strong leadership. Now, the difference is that for the final assignment, you are going to reflect on the application of leadership and the application of the theories through 4 lenses. So, leadership at the 3-minute, okay, at the 3-minute mark, leadership at the 3-hour mark, leadership at the 3-day mark, leadership at the 3-month mark. Now, you can adjust this and adjust it to say leadership at the 3-second, okay, at the 3-second mark, and then 3-minute, 3-hour, 3 days. You can do 5, in fact, if you want to do 3 seconds, 3 minutes, 3 hours, 3 days, 3 months, 3 years even, if you wanted to add on. It's no problem, okay? That's up to you, but at least these 4 lenses, okay? So what are we looking at here? What we're trying to look at here is how an evolving crisis would demand and call for a change in leadership, okay? That's the exercise. That's the idea. We know, for example, think about what happens, a shooter, right? Active shooter. So you're at home Monday morning, and you driving to work, or you're at home, you're in your car, whatever, and breaking news, you hear it on the radio. There's an active shooter in whatever county, all right? Who takes the leadership role? What would you do? How would you act? What role would you play in that? Who is the leader in changes depending on the time, right? Something happens, an active shooter, a bomb in the subway. At the 3-second, after 3 seconds of the event happening, you're going to have certain conditions that are going to require certain actions, certain individuals to take on leadership roles. At the 3-minute mark, those conditions may have changed. At the 3-hour mark, those conditions will have changed even more. So on and so forth. And so this is the idea, right? That you begin to think about a scenario, a crisis, an event, an emergency, and think about how the leadership and the leadership as a process, which we'll talk about here in a minute, how the leadership process evolves with time as a crisis or as a situation which calls upon for leadership is also evolving at the same time, okay? So we'll talk more about this during these next few weeks leading up to week 8, but just so that you have an idea of what your critical assignment will be about. Okay. To continue on, or to conclude, I should say, with the final assignment, the critical assignment, should draw on multiple theories, including the textbook, okay, but also beyond the textbook. This is a graduate course, so we should be thinking about being scholarly and incorporating peer-reviewed work to substantiate our claims and our work. And so you are going to be required a minimum of 6 journal articles. So you can have 2 news articles, 2 videos, and then 2 additional resources, okay? So this is the minimum that you are expected to have for this final assignment, okay? All right. So these are some of the deliverables that we are going to have for the entire course. Now let's talk about leadership. Let's just kind of get started with leadership because it is a very broad and extensive discipline and area of study. All right. So what is leadership? Okay. Well, when you read this week's chapters, you're going to see that the first thing you might see is that the defining leadership is not easy, and that there's many definitions for it, and that is really the truth. Okay, leadership is defined in many different ways by many different people, and using different lenses and from different perspectives. And in fact, when we think about public sector leadership and then private sector leadership, we're talking about leadership, yes, but it's different. Okay, there are differences, and so it's not an easy thing to define. Uh, One way that I like to think about leadership is as a process. Okay, leadership as a process, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. Okay, so leadership defined, or defining leadership. Well, how do we define leadership? Well, the one definition one definition I could give you for leadership is that leadership is the process of influencing another individual to achieve a goal or objective. Okay, that's leadership. It's very simple. Are you influencing another person, and in doing so, helping that other person achieve something that they themselves, by themselves, would not have been able to do? If you have done that, then you are a leader. That is leadership. Okay, so we have individuals in this slide here, great leaders. These are very famous and giants, if you will, of leadership. For example, we have Dr. King. Okay, Dr. King, obviously, champion of civil rights, civil rights movement of the 1960s. Okay, his leadership style, transformational. His leadership style based on the premise of nonviolence. Okay, so a leadership style that was more aligned to servant leadership. Okay, also you could think about the entire civil rights movement itself was and also a process of leadership. Okay, because it involved many different individuals, not just Dr. King. Dr. King was obviously a very influential, very important figure in this movement. Okay, but it did have other figures that were also very important, and so you could think about the leadership process that supported the civil rights movement was a transformational process, but also a collective leadership process where you had many different individuals acting, some in concert and some by themselves, to try to achieve basically the same objective. Okay, so you have an example here from Dr. King. Obviously, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, considered one of the great presidents of the United States, mostly for his role in helping the United States get out of the recession, right, the Great Depression. So FDR's New Deal, his New Deal policies, considered very innovative, but also controversial at the time and even today. But very necessary at the time. And so you think about FDR, and you think about strong leadership. You think about authoritarian, not dictatorial, right? Not I'm sorry, autocratic leadership, not authoritarian, but certainly a strong central leadership role in FDR. the concept of the great man theory, okay, which we'll talk about in chapter 1. The great man theory is that leaders like FDR are leaders that are born, okay? FDR was born to be a leader, okay? And the great man theory says that some individuals, in fact, Dr. King, right, or JFK, these individuals were born to be leaders. They were born leaders, and not everybody is able to be a leader like them, because you have to be born with certain characteristics and traits. Well, we'll see that it's not necessarily the case, okay? So we'll talk about in chapter 1, chapter 2 to 3, you'll be talking about defining leadership, different leadership styles, okay? Leadership models. For example, there are important leadership models in the leadership literature. Among them, one of the more important ones, the Hershey and Blanchard situational leadership model. This is a very intuitive and useful model. It's also very important in the theory because it's a model that supposes that leadership styles should be based on the level of maturity of the followers. So it's a situational leadership approach, and if you think about it, what it says is basically the right style, the right type of leadership that I should implement needs to be driven by the situation, and the situation needs to be driven by the maturity level of my followers. So, and we'll talk about what maturity of the followers means in future classes. But basically, it's this: how able is a follower able to achieve the work? I mean, is the person able to do the work? And the second dimension is the person willing to do the work? So think about if you are in a position where you are a manager, for example, and you have a team, you might run across some folks that are very willing to do the work but have no idea how to do it. And then you might run across people that are really intelligent and very capable but have a very bad work ethic and a very bad attitude and simply don't want to do it. So between these two dimensions, you're going to find a lot of different people. Okay, so that's the Hershey and Blanchard model, situational leadership model. Then you have other very important and famous models. For example, the Ohio State University leadership model. You have the University of Michigan leadership model. These two schools, they're rivals, and they're rivals here as well. Okay, there's also the University of Iowa model too. So there's many different models and theories in leadership that we are going to be looking at throughout the course, okay? And that's why those videos are so important, because they do cover a lot of these different types of leadership approaches and styles, okay? So it's important that you watch them. All right, now I said that leadership is a process, and what I want you to get out of this idea is that I don't want you to think, or if you are thinking about leadership right now as a person, or as a position, or as a role, you need to take that thought and crumble it into a piece of paper and throw it in the garbage, okay? Because that is not complete. It's an incomplete perspective of leadership, okay? Leadership is neither a position or a role or a oh my goodness, I draw a blank. But it's neither position, role, or title, I should say. Okay. So, for example, if you are the general manager, okay, the fact that you are named general manager of a company doesn't necessarily mean that you are automatically a leader. All right. You have been named to the GM of a position, right? Or say you have been named the Director of Homeland Security. Well, you've just been named into a role, into a position, but are you a leader? And that's yet to be seen if you are in fact a leader or not. So being in a position of authority, control, or power doesn't equate to leadership. At least it doesn't fully, okay? And we'll talk about that during this course. Leadership is a process that involves a leader and a follower. Okay, in its most basic, in its most basic relationship, we talk about the dyadic relationship. It's a dyad. So a dyad is like a little ball, right? So the dyadic relationship is leader and follower. It's like mom and dad, okay, husband and wife, all right, teacher and student. This is a dyadic relationship. So leadership can happen, can take place in the most basic dimension, which is the dyadic relationship. Okay, that's all you need: a leader and a follower, and then you need a goal. You need an objective. Okay, because you can't lead towards nothing. All right, you can't. I mean, there's a reason why we get up to go to work, and there's a reason why we go and play basketball or go to the gym or attend church or travel or whatever. There's always an objective. It could, whatever it is, and it doesn't have to be a formal objective. It could be leisure. It could be spending time with your kids. It could be anything. Okay, praying. Okay, praying and attending church and reading your Bible has a purpose. Okay, so but there has to be a purpose. There has to be a goal. There has to be an objective that you are trying to achieve. All right, so you need a leader, you need a follower, you need a goal or an objective. You need a vision too. You need to have a vision, and the reason that you need to have a vision is because leadership, it requires change. It involves change. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that everything has to change, but something has to change. It could be time. It could be the way you look at things, your worldview, your perception, your behavior. Okay. But it involves something has to change, because there's a saying that says, don't expect the same thing, don't expect different results by doing the same thing. Well, that's kind of the idea. Don't expect leadership to take place, the process of leadership to take place, if you don't do something different, if you don't change something. Because influence, which is this last part of the process here, because leadership is all about influence. In fact, if you wanted to find a synonym for leadership, it would be influence. Okay? So, are you influencing somebody else to do something, whether it's good or bad? And if you are, you're a leader. Now, depending on what you're influencing that person to do will determine what kind of a leader you are. You could be a transformational leader, you could be a great leader, or you could be a toxic leader. Okay, or what we sometimes refer to as an anti-leader, right? We'll talk about some examples during this course about, of great leaders per se who have been horrible individuals and who have led people to do terrible things. Okay, so leadership is a process. I want you to think about leadership as a process. Think about leadership as this fungible thing. It's like think about a ball, like a virtual ball, like a sphere that is fungible. And meaning fungible means that it can go, you can have it and you can lose it, and you can transfer it to somebody else. Think about leadership as this virtual ball that can be transferred from one person to the other. Well, that's leadership. Okay? You don't have to be in a position of authority, control, or power to be a leader, because you can be a leader and you can generate leadership and demonstrate leadership in any position. You could be at the bottom, you could be in the middle, you could be at the top. Okay? If you are able to influence somebody else to do something that they would have not been able to do on their own, you are a leader. Okay? So think about that, okay, as we close this first week, okay? All right. Now, a note on late assignments, and I don't want to end with on a sour note, but I just want to make sure that we do keep this in mind. Okay. Now, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. That's what John Lennon said at one point in his song, right? So I understand that life happens. Okay. And if life does happen, and there are going to be some extenuating circumstances, illnesses and accidents, God forbid, okay? But, whatever happens, if you have something, please let me know immediately and we'll work around it, okay? We'll figure something out so that you don't lose as many points, right? I'll be very flexible. I'm always flexible. I try to be as flexible as I can. So I'll work with you. But what I don't like and I can't do is not know what happened and why you didn't turn in an assignment, and then have you come and tell me 2 weeks later that, asking me if you can turn in the assignment late, okay, because your computer fell in the water, okay? That's not a graduate level excuse, all right? So let's be as responsible as we can and as transparent and communicate with each other, and and I will work with you, okay? So, but aside from those extenuating circumstances, late assignments are penalized 10% for each day late. So you turn it in 2 days late, it's 20%, okay? Nothing is accepted past the first week. It is due, okay? And late work will not be accepted after the last day of class, all right? So please keep these in mind, all right? Okay, so I hope that you have enjoyed this first lecture. And I'm looking forward again to this class, and I'm sure it's going to be really interesting and entertaining and insightful, and I hope that you learn a great deal from it. I'm sure that I will from you, and I wish you the very best this first week. Drop me a line if you have any questions on anything regarding the class. If you need further help, assistance, we can set up a Zoom call at our mutual convenience. Otherwise, just enjoy the week. Have a great first week, and God bless you all. Okay? Thank you very much.